Marvel feels the need for Tommy Shepperd, aka Speed. Hi, I'm Nando, and in these videos I take a character from Marvel Comics, I talk about their background, their power set, their personality, and I give you some reading recommendations. And this is all because this week this character is being introduced into the collectible card game Marvel Snap. But that's the end of the video, because in the beginning we're talking about Speed in comics and in television, and those are basically the only two places Speed shows up. But okay, so comics. Speed is sort of, kind of, one half of Wanda's set of twins that turned out to be part of the devil and then didn't really exist. If you have not watched my video on Wiccan, Billy Kaplan, I'd recommend you go watch it right now. But here's the gist of that story that leads up to these kids being born. Wanda and Vision are in love, they get a house, they start a family, they have two kids, Billy and Tommy. They are both like Wanda's kids made of hex magic. Nobody quite knows what's going on. She shouldn't be able to have them, not with a synthezoid like the Vision, but there they are. So what are you going to do? It turns out this is all a ploy by Mephisto. He sends Master Pandemonium in to absorb the kids, steals their souls back into his arms, and then those souls go back to Mephisto. Wanda's very upset about this, but they wipe her memory. And by they, I think it's Agatha Harkness, but one of these characters wipes her memory so that she does not remember she even had these kids. Partially because, like, it's a lot of baggage to deal with this. You can't have, this character. I mean, you can have this character upset about this for a while, but I think a lot of the times with writers and comics, they want to set up a clean slate so they can have the adventures that they always wanted to have, and so these characters aren't bogged down by this enormous continuity, and also so that new readers can come in and they don't have to be like, oh wait, I didn't know Wanda had kids, let's go, find some books, especially back in like the 80s and 90s where it's like, when are you even, where are you going to find you have to go back and find the books, there's no Wikipedia, so it was tricky. But with a lot of those mind eraser stories usually came some sort of other shoe drop moment where the memories returned, and that caused a lot of problems for Wanda. This was Avengers Disassembled. Wanda remembered she had two kids. She got very upset about what the Avengers did to her. They had manipulated her, so she fully lost control. This was kind of influenced by Doctor Doom, but it doesn't matter because what ended up happening is a lot of chaos and enemies showed up and Avengers were dying left and right, and then that turned into House of M, so reality was fully warped so that mutants were like the dominant species on Earth. Magneto was the king, Wanda had her two kids, and everything was great. Eventually, the other characters in that universe figured out that this new reality, the House of M reality, was fake, and when they challenged Wanda on it, it actually turned out it was Pietro who did this because it was like, either the Avengers were going to kill my sister, or we set up this new reality, so this is what we did. But this event ends with Wanda saying the very famous three words, no more mutants, which led to all but 200-ish of the mutants on planet Earth being depowered. So this was a huge moment for Marvel and the X-Men and mutants. But also this big, magical, reality-warping disaster, it sent ripples through magic that affected these two kids, the souls of these kids that existed in Mephisto from back when Mephisto took the kids and reabsorbed themselves into himself, right? So that sent those two souls back 14 years. So that basically, they were born 14 years ago. So that when these events ended, it was like back to 2005, just regular Marvel Comics where Spider-Man has to go to work and stuff. These two kids were already 14 in this universe. So that's the story of Billy. Billy is found by Iron Lad, and along with Iron Lad, Patriot, and Hulkling forms the Young Avengers. This group grows a little bit. There's some other members that are added. Cassie Lang and Kate Bishop join pretty much immediately. And then a version of Vision that's also kind of Iron Lad is around. But this is, for the most part, the Young Avengers, until they need to recruit some other members. Now, the way that Iron Lad found all of them was with some sort of Young Avengers initiative. So Vision brings it up and he's like, oh, there's this other kid. His name's Tommy. He's out in New Jersey, in Springfield, New Jersey. Let's go get him. And they're like, all right, great. We'll get Tommy. And they get there. It turns out he's in a juvenile detention facility because of something he did, but they rescue him from this facility and we learn a couple things. First one, this guy looks just like Billy. Tommy and Billy look very similar. Now Tommy obviously has white hair, Billy has black hair, so that's how you tell them apart. Besides that, they might as well be the same guy. You'd assume they're twins, but neither of them had a brother growing up, so what could that be? Second thing, Tommy has speed powers. He also has the ability to disrupt molecular vibrations, which creates explosions. This is what gets Tommy in so much trouble. Also, if I mess up the names, I'm just gonna go to Speed and Wiccan now. Let's do Speed and Wiccan. Okay, that's what gets Speed in so much trouble. He's in this juvenile detention facility because he accidentally blew up his school. So he's like kind of a troublemaker, but also like he's a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's just kind of a jerk, and he has a power that is hard to control, or at least he doesn't know how to control it. But to break him out, he joins the Young Avengers. Again, everybody, pretty much every single character that meets him goes, "You look a lot like Billy Kaplan," and he goes, "I know, but we don't know each other, so I don't know what to tell you." And this is all in what I would call his first important issue. This is Avengers Volume 1, Issue 10, written by Alan Heinberg, with art by Jim Chung, Rob Stoll, Dave Melkes, Dexter Vines, Justin Ponzer, and Corey Petit. So then Speed helps the Young Avengers fight the Skrulls, who are trying to take Teddy back because of Teddy's complicated history, which we will get into next week in the Hulkling video. But all that matters is it goes well, and Speed is inducted into the Young Avengers. Next big story arc that's important for Speed, Children's Crusade. This is an Avengers book, but it's really just like the Young Avengers story of Billy and Tommy finding Wanda in, first they look in Transia, and then they end up looking in Latveria. Turns out she's working with Doctor Doom. Creates a whole big fight between the Avengers, the X-Men, Wanda, the Young Avengers, and Doctor Doom. A couple people die, a couple people come back to life. It's a fun story. It's a little bit complicated. The part I want to focus on with Tommy, Speed, because he is here, although I would say this is more of a Billy story. A lot of the stories, like they're twins, and Billy and Tommy, like, you know, they're basically a pair, but like Billy is more important. Wiccan has a lot more focus on a lot of these books. I usually try to give you a sense of like how many appearances a character has. Billy, Wiccan, I don't know, about 200-ish appearances. Tommy, Speed, maybe like 80 appearances. So that's the depth. Very rarely do you see a book with just Tommy, but there's plenty of books with just Bill. The one thing I do think is fun about Children's Crusade is when Tommy first meets his uncle, Quicksilver, because again, they are technically not related to Wanda, but like they're clearly Wanda's kids. Magneto takes the Young Avengers to Transia to look for Wanda because he knows somebody's out there. There's some sort of Wanda-looking person who seems to have no memory of being Wanda. So like, maybe it's not her, but the kids are like, we got to figure this out because clearly we're involved. We are her children. And when they're there, they run into Quicksilver, who is also looking for Wanda. They get into a fight. This is a fun moment for Speed. Speed fights Quicksilver and kind of races him. And Quicksilver and Speed are very similar. So I'd say the personality thing, if you're familiar with how Quicksilver usually works in the comics, I wouldn't say it's quite this. So we've had two Quicksilvers in the movies. We've had Craven Silver, as we'll call him in the future, I'm sure. Craven Silver. And then the second one, we've had Evan Peters from the Days of Future Past and all those movies. I would say neither of them feel fully like Quicksilver to me, the way that I read him. I think the best version of Quicksilver, honestly, is the version from X-Men Evolution, just because like that version, Quicksilver is so annoying, but not in the same way I would say that Evan Peters Quicksilver is annoying, because Evan Peters Quicksilver is just kind of like, I don't know, a very specific kind of nerd, but it's not the same thing as like he actively does not like a lot of the people he is around. Like, he knows he rubs everybody the wrong way, and a lot of the time he's like, yeah, it's because I'm better than you, so I don't know what you expect. Like, yeah, I'm better than you, everybody likes me, everybody hates you. I don't think either versions of Quicksilver has treated him as harshly as I think he needs to be treated. Like, if he were reintroduced into the MCU, I would really want Quicksilver to have the same attitude. He's like a less evil Gaston. He's that kind of character, where he is so unbelievably cocky. And I think Craven Silver almost gets there, but I don't think his Quicksilver has enough room to like fully be a character. And I would say Evan Peters' character, he borders on cocky, but I think he's also just kind of aloof, is maybe the way I would describe him. Like, Quicksilver in the comics is actively a jerk to everybody he meets. And I just think this is important because this is kind of what Speed is. Speed is him but a kid, and he's incredibly cocky, incredibly sure of himself. He makes a lot of mistakes because he overestimates his abilities, but that is what's fun about him. And what's fun about a lot of speedsters is this attitude of like, don't worry, I got this. And then you run in, do some cool stuff, and then get punched in the face and you're down. So it's fun to see Speed meet Quicksilver, and Quicksilver be like, yeah, I know who you are. You're in my way. This isn't helpful. I don't want to hang out with you. And Speed's just like, I don't know. I mean, I'm faster than you, so it's cool. I'll race you, but I am going to beat you because I'm also ultra confident and very fast. I think canonically, we know Quicksilver is faster than Speed. Honestly, it's for nothing else than because like I just don't think Speed has had enough big tests of his speed. The most recent interaction I can think of between the two is in the Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch books, and in it, Quicksilver does kind of definitively say like, you're not as fast as me. Maybe you will be eventually, but you're not now. You may be wondering, is he a mutant? And the answer is, I'm almost positive he is. I don't think he had much to do on Krakoa. I don't know why. It's weird. For a character who's like a speedster in the Marvel Comics universe that like doesn't have that many speedsters, you figure there'd be like more of a use for speed, especially where Quicksilver like isn't traditionally on the Avengers, and he doesn't, you know, he plays in X-Men stories a little bit, but like he had his moment where he crossed over and then it kind of went back. I am surprised they haven't tried to fill that void with speed. Now, there are other speedsters in the Marvel Comics universe, obviously Makari, Quicksilver, the Wizard, Speed Demon, but I don't know, like a bunch of those are bad guys, and Makari's just kind of off doing their own Eternals thing, so I don't see why Speed doesn't have a bigger place in Marvel Comics. Like, I just think that we need one writer who's like, I really want to do Quicksilver stuff, but I can't use Quicksilver, and somebody else in the room be like, use Speed, and then like, oh right, got Speed right over here. But anyway, yeah, so it's fun to see them interact. So I'd say that's important issue number 2. I'd say read all of Children's Crusade, but Avengers Children's Crusade issue 2, written by Alan Heinberg, with art by Jim Chung, Mark Morales, Justin Ponzer, and Corey Petit. So the next time we see Speed is in the second Young Avengers series, although it's clear that the Young Avengers like aren't really a thing anymore. Some of the characters seem to be keeping in touch. Speed does not show up in that book, and this is the book that was written by Kieran Gillen, if you're trying to kind of separate the eras. Speed does not show up in that book until issue 6, and like by that time, all of the plot's in motion. The evil mother parasite from another dimension is here. It's wreaking havoc. What we learned is Speed has a job, like a day job, where he assembles computer parts. He works at a company that does this, and another character that's important works at this company, David Alline, who is the mutant known as Prodigy, although, because of the events of House of M, he's no longer a mutant, but he still has all of the knowledge that he kind of leached off all of the other characters he's ever met. So he's very smart. Him and Tommy meet, and they're like, oh, you're a superhero, cool. And Tommy at this point is basically like, I have no friends. I'm, you know, somewhat abrasive, but also just like nobody else is at my level. So he meets David, and there's a little bit of like chemistry there. Just as like friends, you can tell they're like, hey, let's go get lunch. All right, cool. And they hang out. What we learn about Tommy here in this issue that I think is so interesting is Tommy is assembling these computer parts, and he does it really quickly. He's in and out in like 5 minutes, and that's his whole workday. And David's like, yeah, it's good for you, man. That's a good job if you can do it. And Tommy explains like, no. I do not do this job in 5 minutes. It seems like 5 minutes to you, but it is 2 weeks to me. So like I am in this incredibly tedious, you know, day job work environment, but you guys just perceive it as this really quick thing, which I think is interesting. I think speedsters don't always have to work like that. And I think sometimes it makes it seem like so much of a curse that you can't really enjoy it. That I guess I like the idea that there are consequences to this. They're not necessarily like the same consequences that a character who needs to do something, you know, negative to use their superpowers gets, but there are consequences in terms of this is not all super easy for Tommy, which is why like Tommy needs like a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever who's also a speedster. And we have so few other speedsters, young speedsters, male or female or whatever, that Tommy can date, because Tommy is a young Avenger, which means he's bisexual. That's kind of a joke, although I wouldn't say that's like that much of a joke, but that said is one of the things that comes up in this series. Like almost none of the young Avengers are straight. Some are gay, some are bisexual, and I'm sure if this came out today, people would be very upset about it because it is very woke. But like Tommy is definitely on the bisexual side, because one of the other things I love about Tommy is right off the bat, he is flirting with Kate. Like when they start Young Avengers stuff, he's like immediately putting the moves on her, and this is annoying Patriot, and this is classic Quicksilver behavior. Later, Tommy will date David, Prodigy. We find out that they dated, although I think we do know by now that they've broken up. But they had a relationship. There's another relationship that Speed had that I think was so funny, does not come up enough. It's with a character named, I swear, all right, so here's the name. You're gonna imagine what is this character's deal. She is a member of like the second evil Young Avengers team, let's say, Dark Young Avengers. I don't know if they ever got a name like that. And her superhero name is Coat of Arms. So you take a second in your head and imagine what that superpower that comes with that name is. Okay, now that you've taken your second, here's the answer. She has a magic coat that gives her extra arms, and she uses them for sword fighting, and also sometimes art, and that's her whole deal. She is kind of the leader of this team. It turns out she met Tommy when they were both in juvie, although like she was not a supervillain. She just found this coat eventually and like used it to do superhero stuff. But they kind of got along. Then when she shows up on the scene with her team of evil-ish young Avengers, most of them kind of flamed out. The only one that really made a dent was the second Enchantress, Sylvie Lushton, who is kind of who Sylvie is based on almost very different like thing. All of the young Avengers do like one-on-one interviews with these other kids, and they try to kind of assess, is this guy on the level? Is he a little weird? Should we let this one join? Should we let that one join? They all have their assessments. Like Billy and Teddy love Enchantress. They're like, she's great. We need to get her on the team right now. Some of the other people have reservations. Kate Bishop's like, yeah, this Crossbonesy guy, something's up with him. I can't quite place it. And Speed's just like, I'm really into coat of arms, so like we should let her on the team. Like she's cool, but also like I'm in love, and it's super funny. I think it's a very interesting pairing. It goes nowhere because she's gone. Like she was a part of, I think, this like little Masters of Evil or whatever they were called, and she hasn't been seen since. But I do think that's funny because they kind of treat it as this like star-crossed lovers, kind of Romeo and Juliet kind of relationship. But Speed, because he's Speed, is not coy about this at all. He's like, I got chemistry with her. She can be an Avenger, please. And they're all like, I guess so. So yeah, Coat of Arms is another character that Tommy's been with. All this goes to say, this Young Avengers book is a fun book, doesn't focus very much on Tommy. Besides being in this job, immediately after that, he gets kidnapped by this evil patriot that we learn is kind of a, herald of future Billy, and we don't fully get the explanation. It's this mysterious zombie that just says like tick tock, and then disappears, whatever. Eventually, that character steals Tommy. Prodigy ends up kissing that character, this evil patriot guy, and then he turns back into Tommy, and Tommy's like, hey, I thought we were in a warehouse. Whatever, let's go party. So that's like a kiss. It's not David's first kiss with a boy, because he also kisses Teddy earlier in the book, but this will, we learn, turn into a relationship, so that's fun. I think they're interesting like as a couple because David is very analytical. He knows everything. Tommy thinks he knows everything, but Tommy also has like superpowers, so he thinks really high speed. So like, I can see it, but that being said, I don't think they're currently still together. I think they broke up on good terms or something. So I'd say Tommy's introduction in that Young Avengers book is the third important Speed issue. So this is Young Avengers Volume 2, Issue 6, written by Kieran Gillen with art by Kate Brown and Clayton Cowles. This whole run is great, but this is specifically the book that introduces Speed, and then he gets kidnapped, so he's not really in it after that. So as I'm sure you remember, a character named Tommy was in WandaVision. He was one of the kids, and he had speed power. So this is important too. When Wanda has these kids, like she has them, they turn out to be manifestations of the Mind Stone or her soul or whatever, and they disappear. She reabsorbs them. But when this happens in the comics, they're just babies. They don't get superpowers. It is not until they are reborn as Billy Kaplan and Tommy Shepperd that the superpowers develop. In WandaVision, they have them as Wanda's kids. So I do think when they start appearing in the real world, like Billy will now, it'll be a lot more obvious. Like, oh yeah, you're Billy. You do magic and it's blue, just like that other Billy that was around here earlier. And this Tommy, I would say, has the Tommy vibe. He's played by 3 actors. Joseph Friedman is a baby, Gavin Borders as 5-year-old Tommy, and then Jeff Klein is 10-year-old Tommy. He's the annoying brother who's always getting on his other brother's nerves. Besides that, we don't really get too much from Tommy. Like in most Young Avengers stuff, Billy is the POV character for the Malcolm in the Middle episode, but Tommy's around, and yeah, he's kind of a troublemaker. He takes after his uncle when Quicksilver shows up and like gets a similar costume to Quicksilver for Halloween. He has the green tracksuit at the very end, which is the same color as Quicksilver and Speed's costumes traditionally are in the comics. At least Quicksilver has a green costume. Speed is always green. So with all that said, he does not currently exist in the universe. I keep saying that there is almost no way that the character played by Joe Locke in Agatha and the House of Harkness or whatever is not Billy, the reincarnated version of the Wiccan, like one half of this twin pair. But that's pretty much who that is. It hasn't been fully confirmed, but yeah, that's him. We don't have that for Tommy. There's no character in a future Marvel Cinematic Universe thing where it's like, oh, and then this one's going to be Tommy. I would not be surprised if they don't introduce Speed for a little while. Partially because I think introducing like Wiccan is important, but like we don't have other pretty important young Avengers. There's no Iron Lad, there's no Hulkling. Like we have a Patriot, but he doesn't have superpowers yet. So if we want to do a young Avengers, we can use some of the characters we already have, like Miss Marvel, Hawkeye, Ironheart, maybe Kid Loki if they want to. But there are other characters that I would say are more important to introduce before we get to Speed. I mean, he's not even a founding member of Young Avengers, and he's not like a core group member in either of those books. And I do think I've said this, like, I think that moment where they see Tommy and go, hey, he looks just like you, what's going on, is a great stinger for a Young Avengers thing. Like, if there was a Young Avengers movie, that movie and my Young Avengers pitch ends like that, could end with them looking up new recruits and then finding Tommy and going, why does this guy look like you, Billy? And then like Young Avengers 2 would be the Children's Crusade rescuing Wanda or something. I don't know. This is all just like kind of what I want to do, but also what I think makes sense for Marvel. Like they have to prioritize which characters they're going to introduce. And there's no way Speed gets introduced before Hulkling. And as far as I know, currently, there's no plans to put Hulkling in anything. So like, you know, I think Speed is low on the order. That being said, I think they need a Speedster. Like I think having a Speedster as a core member of your superhero team is important, and I wouldn't be surprised if the comics maybe managed to elevate Speed. I also wouldn't be surprised if they just put Tommy, like they find the character Tommy, the Speedster, and he just ends up on a super team like, you know, Generation X or Academy X or whatever the like young X-Men team is, or he could be on some sort of Avengers Academy team that is kind of the Young Avengers, but is more of a like, you know, kids from all over the place kind of thing. Like, I think he could just come up through one of those systems and that would be fine. In Marvel Snap, Speed is currently a 3 cost, 3 power with the ongoing effect +1 power for each turn in which you spend all of your energy. So I think this is pretty obvious why this is power. I don't think there's anything about this kind of spend energy and get more power. Like, this is not a mechanic that has existed in the game for very long. There's plenty of cards that are don't spend energy and then get extra power that activates some effect. But like, I wouldn't say this is associated with the Speedsters. You know, Quicksilver is an automatic draw. That's what he does. Makari is an automatic play. That's what she does. So like those two, neither of them have this energy thing, but what makes Tommy so fun is A, he pairs very well with Quicksilver. You have a 1-cost card in your hand that you can play, so that'll automatically give you that first power bump. But then B, he pairs very well with Wiccan, whose whole deal is if you spend all your energy, you get lots of extra energy to spend in the future. So it's like, there is a really obvious synergy between these two characters. Now, I think there's some problems here. One is, I think the way a lot of people will play Wiccan is they will try to cheat him out on turn 3, because it's on the turn you play him. As long as you spent all your energy in every turn before that, you get the energy boost. So it doesn't matter whether you had a turn 3 and you played Speed and that went well, or you just played a Zabu or a Psylocke and then automatically got Billy out on turn 4. And that's like, Speed's still fine, but you don't need him. Especially because if you play Billy first, let's say you cheat him out onto 3, there's a very good chance you're not going to spend all of your energy on turns 4, 5, and 6 because that's just so much energy. So you won't be getting the maximum boost for Speed. Does Speed synergize well with the other Young Avengers? Kind of. Some of them I think work pretty well with him. America Chavez is a good 1-drop. Kate Bishop is a good 2-drop. We don't have a Prodigy in the game yet. Obviously works well with Wiccan. Patriot's a 3-drop, but it doesn't matter when you play Speed, as long as you play Speed and you spent all your energy in the previous turn. So it's like you could play Patriot that turn and then you can play Speed next turn. Works very well with Quicksilver, obviously. Doesn't work particularly well with Scarlet Witch, but honestly, that's a really fun line. And now that I think about it, is Quicksilver 1, Scarlet Witch 2, Speed 3, Wiccan 4. The odds of drawing him is tough, and this is where it gets really tricky. If you put Quicksilver into your deck, you're less likely to draw certain other cards for math reasons. So like, how good is Speed really without Wiccan? You know, realistically, he's like, you know, 3/7, so he's a pretty okay card. That's an above average 3-drop, but you know, I think there's other cards that are better suited for that. Other Young Avengers he works well with. Not really Hulkling. You know, like your Onslaughts, your Mystiques, I guess, because it's an ongoing power. Be able to be stolen from a rogue. Doesn't work particularly well with Magneto. Coat of Arms isn't in the game yet, so it doesn't have any synergy with Coat of Arms. But yeah, I would say the obvious synergy, this Billy synergy, is great. And I think it is a very solid synergy, but much like Billy and Speed in their relationship, I think it's very reasonable that Wiccan is going to get more play than Speed, just because Speed kind of needs Wiccan to be relevant, but Wiccan doesn't necessarily need Speed. So yeah, I think maybe if there's one or two more spend all your energy and then X happens cards, then this as like a play style will be a lot more effective. But right now it's really just Billy and Tommy, you know, Wiccan and Speed. Those are the only two cards that I can think of at least that play that way. So, you know, it doesn't feel like it's its own archetype yet. The other thing I'll say, and I said this about Billy, the High Evolutionary frequently gets messed up with all of the Scarlet Witch stories and Quicksilver, because sometimes they were mutants and sometimes they weren't, sometimes they were given powers by him and sometimes not. It's complicated, but they don't really like the High Evolutionary, and he's, you know, a bad guy. But I like that Speed and Wiccan actively work against High Evolutionary. Like, they do not work well with him. They also work really well against Red Hulk, because Red Hulk powers up if you are not spending all of your energy. So I think that's something, but I don't know if those characters have ever met. So yeah, that's Speed. Very fun. Last one of these we're going to be doing next week is Emperor Hulkling, as he is called, or just, you know, Hulkling for people that are not familiar with all of the events of Empire, which is most of what we're going to be covering with him, because that's the one part of these character stories that has not come up yet, because it is the Teddy focused storyline. If you enjoy these videos, I make them once every week, sometimes twice a week. They usually go up early on Nebula. This one's going up a day after it's supposed to, but otherwise they go up a week early, basically. So if you want to get a head start, this is a good way too. I have a channel called Nando V Movies, and then this channel, the Nando Cut. On Nando V Movies, I made a Young Avengers pitch, but it does not have any Tommy in it besides this little, like, hey, maybe he's, you know, going to show up in the second one, which I think he should. That's all I got. Stay safe, everybody, and I'll see you around.